Okay, we are live. Yo, yo. What's good, everybody? You know who it is. It is the Godfather of VR, the ageless wonder, the man licking clay. Coming back at you with another stream. Um, Title is pretty self explanatory, but before we get underway, hope everybody's doing pretty good. Uh, just got done playing some games on the Quest, trying to get some more exercise in. Mixing it up, playing some Racket Fury, playing some Creed. Uh, what else did I play? Oh, excuse me, a little bit of Pistol Whip. So yeah, I got a pretty good workout in today. But yeah, that's mainly what this first topic is about. Is about the Quest. I bought Creed: Rise to Glory on the Oculus Quest, even though I already have it on Steam, PC to be specific, on the PlayStation VR. But something just told me that I really wanted to play this game on the Quest because of the freedom, with no wires. Now, when you get an Oculus Quest, it does come with a free demo of Creed: Rise to Glory. And I played the demo before, and I thought it wasn't bad, but honestly, I wasn't being fair to the game back then because um, I went back and checked the date on when I picked up my Oculus Quest, and I think I picked it up like July 21st or something like that, and then I did an unboxing on July 25th, and so. And I was telling you guys before in the past that Poker Stars was one of the first games that I saw on the Oculus Quest, and I felt like it didn't look good, and it looked like PS1 graphics, and it totally turned me off. And I was like, if this is the kind of stuff we can expect to get out of the Oculus Quest, I'm not sure I'm on board with this. But and then the other thing I was concerned about was, since it was supposed to be a band-aid for my son to get him through until I get a PC for him. Um, Not only they are in the um, say not only that they are in the same third-person adventure games. LOL, Sony trash. Okay, I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but if you don't like Sony or Microsoft, I guess that's your prerogative. Um, so getting back to this Creed thing, so when I saw how Poker Stars looked on the Oculus Quest, and I thought, like, if this is a preview of what we can expect from the Oculus Quest, I'm not so sure I'm on board with this, and I wasn't sure my son was going to like it either, which he wasn't playing it that much, but now he says that now that they added a couple of modes to Pavlov that he likes, he does play it more. So because of the kind of bad taste that Poker Stars left in my mouth on Quest, um, I didn't give Creed a fair chance, and so I kind of rediscovered Creed after seeing that it was in the top 10 of games of 2019. So I'm thinking to myself that that must mean that the game has been selling, and I assume that most of it was probably on the Oculus Quest, being that that's the hot item right now. I'm still seeing posts on the Facebook groups that I'm in of people getting a Quest every day. So it's like 3-4 times a day I'm seeing a new post from someone who just got a Quest. So they're sprouting up out there. So I have to believe that Creed Rise to Glory, a good portion of those games that were sold were bought on the Quest. So that was another thing that made me want to take that dip, because I feel like as many games as being bought up on the Quest, and as many quests as being picked up, period. I'd like to think that I won't have too much of a problem finding opponents. So all the multiplayer games that I've played so far on the Oculus Quest, I haven't really had a problem finding opponents. So I went ahead and bought the full version of Creed, and I gotta say that it looks surprisingly good. Now that I can go in there with an open mind, it actually doesn't look too far away from the PlayStation version or PC for that matter. I would probably say that when I was in the gym, in the player versus player gym, waiting for an opponent, the most noticeable difference was that the gym looked a little bit, it looked dim. It looked like the lights were turned down inside that gym. But other than that, it looked pretty damn close to the PC and PlayStation VR version. And what makes it even better is that I didn't have a problem finding an opponent. I only use VR for porno, but that Half-Life VR looks really interesting. Okay, I guess that's cool that you like porno, using VR for that. So I'd imagine that you're getting your enjoyment out of it. So now Creed is now the third game that I prefer to play on the Oculus Quest, along with Dead and Buried and Racket Fury Tennis. And I'm getting really curious about the Sports Scramble. That was another demo on the Oculus Quest when I first got it, and it's got tennis and a couple of other things on there, but it's real arcadey stuff. You serve the ball and it goes through this hoop, and then the ball turns into a football or some kind of wacky character. But hey, it's still a fun game though, no less. Even though it's some almost like some Mario Tennis type stuff. So so no, that doesn't bother me one way or the other. What you do with your Quest, uh, or whatever VR headset that you might have. I'm all about the growth of VR. So if that's how you choose to get your VR fixes, hey, that's on you. I'm not gonna judge you. So that's pretty much it on the Quest thing. It's just I'm enjoying it more and more, and I'm actually starting to have a little bit of regret that I'm beginning to feel like I should have bought the 128 gig now instead of the 64. But it would have been even nicer if if Oculus would have allowed, if they would have put an SD slot in there to allow you to put an SD card in there. So that would have been nice, especially being how hard it is to get a Quest. Because there's, the situation as it is right now. There's no way I would sell my Quest and have to sit around and wait to get a 128 gig one. So it's just it is what it is. I guess over time I'll just once that memory gets full, I'll have to start deleting games that I don't play anymore. So I don't know. I'm sure at some point I'll let me see. I've been on 13 minutes. I'm sure I'll come back down. I'll come back around to the VR part here in a little bit. But moving on. Um, so I got the 128 gig, and it's a colossal beast. It's definitely got more memory. That's for certain. Um, so I mean, I got all the headsets. I mean the ones that I need: PSVR, Rift S, and Quest. But moving on to the situation with Sony, obviously the cat's out the bag now that Sony's not going to be attending E3 this year, which I'm not terribly surprised. Um, Truth be told, I felt like Sony didn't even need to come to E3 this year. I felt like the only way I kind of felt like the only way they really would come to E3 this year as a PR move, you know what I mean, is so they don't look like the bad guy for not coming 2 years in a row. But last year, I can't remember where I said it at. I can't remember if I said it on my own podcast or on someone else's. But I know I was talking about E3 and Sony, and I remember saying that I wouldn't be surprised if Sony skips E3 altogether, and it ended up happening because looking back at it, the past few E3s have been trash. You know, um, Sony's been the only entertainment. Sony has no games to show. That's why they're not showing up. Oh, come on. Anyway, they've been making these developers stay tight-lipped about the stuff that they've been working on the PS5, and you say they got no games. Come on, now stop it. Seriously. I mean, be logical. Don't act like these Xbox, man. Um, Microsoft showed up to E3 last year, and for the most part, I thought it was trash because all they did was show third-party games, except for the way Phil put it. They said they're going to take chances on existing franchises. They're going to take chances, and their idea of taking chances was Gears Tactics, Gears Pop. Ooh, big risk there. But I don't know. As I was saying, I'm a critical gamer at the end of the day. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, but seriously, I mean, if you're a logical, I'm a PC gamer, by the way. So am I. But I mean, realistically speaking, if you speak with logic, you have to know that Sony's got some games. I mean, devs have been working on some games for the past couple of years, I'd imagine. Now, what we get when the console launches, that remains to be seen. But I mean, you can't tell me that they're not working on anything. They're definitely working on something, and I would like to think they probably got one or two games that they're going to launch with the console, and I'd imagine we'll see it sometime this year. So I'm hoping that GT Sport, whatever they're going to call it, GT7 or whatever the case may be, I'm hoping that that's going to be one of the launch games for the PS5, and I'm hoping that it will have VR multiplayer. So, but yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is, the past few years, Sony's really been the only entertainment at E3. And Last of Us 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, that's pretty much it. I mean, but those ain't PS5 games, those are PS4 games. They'll probably get a nice coat of paint when the PS5 comes out, but that they're on the PS4. So PLO, what is up? Horizon Zero Dawn 2 could be a launch title, um, which I think that would be huge. Horizon Zero Dawn 2 being a launch title, I think that would be a system seller. I mean, the console's already going to sell anyway. And if the console launches for $400, it's going to sell even more. Expect high demand and short supply. And if Horizon Zero Dawn 2 is another, if that's going to be a launch title, then yeah, it's going to be a system seller. So, send it whatever floats your boat. If that's something that you're not interested in. I have the game. I never finished it. I won't get back around to finishing it, but I still think it's a good game. It's just I'm too deep into VR now. So, There's a lot of flat screen games out there that still look interesting to me, but not enough to buy them. So, so Sony not showing up to E3 this year. Like I said, it was in the back of my mind when I first made that call that they wouldn't be there last year. It was in the back of my mind. I was like, but are they going to show up next year? Because the my thought process was that if it's the same shit, different toilet, where Microsoft is not trying to compete with them, and they're really going to be the only people there worth checking out, what are they going to go for? Have a show on your own stage. So VR gaming is just freaking great. Absolutely. A lot of people haven't finished most games. Yeah, PLO. My flat screen backlog is, excuse me, I think I probably got about 100, somewhere between 100 and 150 flat screen games on my PS4, but I think I probably only finished about 20 of them, because it seemed like for every 10 games that I buy, I only finish one of them. I mean, a flat screen game, God of War was the last one that I finished. I was trying to give an honest effort to finish Spider-Man, and I tried to give a good effort to finish Days Gone, but the situation with Days Gone, I just fell off and just wasn't playing it, and it didn't help that I was watching Sick Humor streams. And then as far as Spider-Man goes, I was at a certain point, and then my son took over and played the game all day while I was asleep. And when I woke up, it was like I didn't know where he was at, so I didn't want to try to catch up on what I missed, and I didn't want to start over. So, yeah, PLO, my VR backlog is crazy too. A lot of games in VR that I'm not going to finish, but I can tell you that some of these games, one of the reasons I'm not going to finish them is because they were games that came out on the PlayStation VR when it was in its infancy. So a lot of these games, had Lego type graphics. So, saying that you can't stay dedicated to one game anymore, JD Max, what is good? When it comes to VR, that definitely holds true, because, I feel like I got damn ADD or something when it comes to VR, because these games, if I buy a game, it only holds my attention long enough until the next game comes out, because I've said that before. One of the reasons it's so hard to finish a game in VR is because there's so many different experiences that we have, and there's still so many more experiences out there yet to be explored. So a lot of these devs, indie or not, a lot of these VR devs are creative, and they come out with something that we've never seen before, and then it's like, okay, I got to give it a try. Case in point. I might be playing a racing game today, and then, like, for instance, that Phantom Covert Ops, Gamertag was playing that today, and that looked like Splinter Cell from a kayak. And it's like, when that game comes out, I'm going to get it, and I'm going to play it, and I'll give it the old college try to finish it, but I'll probably end up playing it for as long as this, until the next thing come out. I mean, I just now finished Vader Immortal Episode 2. And I'm halfway through Episode 3. So, as a whole, Vader Immortal is probably the only... I'm about to finish that, but shit, it took a couple of months for it to happen because I was playing other games. So, who's buying Dragon Ball Z? Kakarot? Kakarot, sorry. No, I'm not into the Dragon Ball Z stuff. I never played any of the Dragon Ball Z games, and I'm just not into it. But I don't have anything against them. Just don't float my boat. So, yeah, I mean, I think last year's E3 was like awful. In addition to Microsoft showing a ton of third-party games, you had EA showcasing a mobile strategy game and had two guys commentating the game as if it was the Super Bowl. That's when I saw that, I said, like, E3 is just trash now. It doesn't have the prestige that it used to have. So because of that, why go? So yeah, to each his own. PLO, you said I hope we get a new VR controller for PSVR when the PS5 launches. I don't want to have to wait for PSVR 2. That's exactly what I think is going to happen. I don't think we're going to see another set of controllers until the new headset comes out. So it is what it is. I mean, I'm used to the controllers. Yeah, if they had a thumbstick, if those Move controllers had a thumbstick, as far as I'm concerned, they wouldn't even need to create any new controllers. I'd be fine with that. So on to Series X. With them, the latest that comes out of that is that I guess Matt Booty said they won't have any games for the Series X for a couple of years, and that's got some people in an uproar, and I don't really understand why, because I mean, what if they show you something but don't give you a date, just like they did with Hellblade 2? They showed everybody Hellblade 2 and it doesn't have a date, and just for the simple fact that it doesn't have a date, that leads me to believe that the game is at least 2 years out. But nobody got upset over that. So I'm led to believe that, I think more or less, some of the rage is, just embarrassment on their part. Because they know the PlayStation people laughing their ass off at them. But, I mean, truth be told, just how much stuff do you expect Microsoft to come up with? Because, they were, this is a bad move. See, I don't know if this is a case of Microsoft saying we're going to hold the games back. I'm thinking it might be a case of the games just aren't ready yet, because when you stop and look at the timeline, remember, the Xbox One X launched in December of 2017. And when Phil Spencer said that all your third-party games are going to look and run better on the X, I think the Xbox community was thinking that if our third-party games are going to look better, just imagine what our first-party games are going to look like. And so I think they sat there holding their breath, waiting for an exclusive. But Microsoft never really said anything about any exclusives being specific to the X. So, not to mention that they were still halfway in that trance that Phil Spencer put them on by telling them that they want multiplayer games. So they were still, kind of Jedi mind tricked into that mindset. And to me, it wasn't until the PlayStation exclusives started coming out, the Shadow of Colossus, the Uncharted Legacy, Horizon Zero Dawn. It wasn't until all Sony started dropping all those bangers and the Xbox was watching those games go by like this, and then they finally went to Microsoft, was like, where's some exclusives? Where's some of our exclusives? And then it got to the point where they had finally threatened to walk off the plantation if they don't get a roadmap. I want an Oculus Quest or Rift really bad. Leaf, I feel you, man. If you have a gaming PC, I would recommend the Rift, just because the games are going to look a little bit better because you're on PC. But at the same time, if you got the Quest, it still wouldn't be a bad move, because you'd have the freedom of movement when it's in standalone mode, and then with a link cable, you can hook it up to a PC and get PC visuals as well as PC performance. So with either one of those headsets, you really can't go wrong. So again, the Xbox, they were watching those exclusives go by like this, those Sony exclusives, and then they finally started, crying to Phil, where's our games? Where's our exclusives? and then it got to the point where they threatened to walk off if Microsoft don't show them something at E3. And so that's why, in my opinion, that's why Microsoft showed them 300 different third-party games and acted like we heard you, we responded. No, they just showed a bunch of third-party games, but they did go shooting their mouth off about how many studios they bought. And what, this is in 2018. So you got they bought Obsidian, I believe, Ninja Theory. They formed a studio, the Initiative, which is supposed to be a quadruple A studio. And I'm like, how the hell are you going to do that? But as soon as they created that studio, they broke the studio in half so they could work on double A games. Even double A games is still going to take a couple of years to come out. So they go off and buy all these studios in 2018. So you have to expect that any brand new IPs that are AAA is probably going to take anywhere from 3 to 5 years to get these games. So it shouldn't have come as a surprise that Microsoft said something like that. Hell, even the double A games that they might be working on, I wouldn't be surprised if you won't get a lot of them until next year. So I don't get what the outrage is about. It ain't like, what did they think, that they buy the studios in the summer of 2018 and then in the fall of 2018, like that, just magic, you got 50 games on? Come on. We know it don't work like that. So we know that a AAA, a high budget AAA game, you probably looking at about a 5. I'm thinking anywhere from 4 to 7 years to get that game out. So, if anything, I'm a little bit surprised that Microsoft was halfway being transparent about it. I'm surprised that they were being halfway honest about it. But I don't think it's anything to get upset about, because you knew Microsoft really didn't have any AAA games except your normal Halo, Gears, and Forza when they picked up all these other studios. So, look at that little trailer we got for Hellblade. We got that trailer, but no date. So you have to assume that that game's a couple years out. And just because Microsoft said these games won't be coming for a couple of years don't mean that they won't have anything to show at E3. The Xbox been going back and forth with that. First, they used to criticize Sony for showing games that was 2-3 years out. And then when Microsoft said we ain't going to do it no more because of the Crackdown debacle, they showed a game that was 2-3 years out. And look how many times it got delayed. And then when it finally came out, it was trash. So Microsoft said we ain't going to do that no more. We ain't going to talk about games that's 2-3 years out. And then, the community got in the uproar about that. So now Microsoft is back to, showing shit that's, 2-3 years out with, Halo Infinite and the Hellblade thing. So, let me see here. Leaf, you say, yeah, I have a gaming PC and I checked it's good for VR. And then, PLO, you said PS4 at least had Knack and Killzone. Not much, but at least it was something. Every launch console has at least one exclusive. I can't believe people are defending Xbox with this. I'm not defending them. I'm just like, how can you expect them to have something ready? Because when you stop and look at it, when did we get Gears 5? When did we get Gears 5? In 2000 what? 2019 or late 2018 we got Gears 5. Okay, so you got Gears 5. So you have to expect that it's going to be another 3-4 years before you get another Gears, unless they're going to make some cheap bullshit just to hurry up and throw it on Game Pass. So there's one exclusive going right there. Boom. You ain't going to see that. Halo 5, whatever. When did we get that? Like 2015? That sounds to me like your most logical shot of a game being ready when the Xbox Series X hits is that Halo. That sounds like the most logical Uh, you know, that sounds like the most logical guess of a game having a chance to be ready when Series X comes out. But anything else, no, you can't expect that. So, like I said, they just gave you a Gears game, so you can't expect to see another one of those for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. They just gave you a Forza game, and I think in 2017, and then they gave you a Forza Horizon. What, a year after that? So you can't expect to see another Forza or another Forza Horizon for another 2, 3 years. So out of their three major exclusives that Microsoft has, they already given you two of those games within the last 3 years. So you can't expect to see another one of those games for a few years. So that only leaves Halo. If you're following that kind of a rotation, that only leaves Halo. And that only leaves the only logical choice of a game being ready when Series X comes out. Now, this, people keep talking about this Fable shit. Until I hear it comes out of Microsoft's mouth, I'm not saying nothing about it, because it sounds to me like they still hanging on to that shit of Microsoft, want Microsoft to put out a game to compete with Horizon Zero Dawn. And Leaf, you said, have I played Beat Saber? Absolutely. That's how I get my exercise in for the week. Creed used to be my main source of exercise. But then once Creed looked like the game was dying, I switched over to Beat Saber being my main source for my exercise. But now that I've rediscovered Creed and it looks like people's playing Creed, I'm going back to playing Creed. But yes, I still play Beat Saber as well as Pistol Whip to get my exercise in. PLO, I didn't mean that you were defending. No, I know that you didn't. I know you didn't think it that way. But I'm talking about the general. I'm thinking about anybody who can think realistically should expect that you're not going to see anything out of Microsoft, for a couple of years. I mean, as far as what came out of Sony's mouth, the only thing that came out of Sony's mouth was Godfall. And I don't even know if they gave a date on that. So we don't know what they might have, if anything, ready to go when the PS5 launches. You got rumors and rumors and rumors, but nothing coming out of Sony mouth. So, but even if Sony, everybody's taking it for granted that Sony just gonna give you something, that something's gonna be ready on the PS5. I mean, it's a safe bet to think like that. I mean, you wouldn't be smoking crack if you were to think that they would have something ready when the PS5 comes out. But probably one or two titles, and then anything else after that might not come for a couple of years, just like with the Xbox. Let me see, PLO. I didn't mean that you were defending him, just meant in general. This has never happened before, though. Yeah. See, but I don't really necessarily feel like this was a deliberate move on Microsoft's part. I think Microsoft just waited too late to start giving people what they were asking for. They tried to brainwash people into wanting multiplayer games. And they were okay with these multiplayer games for a minute. They act like they was in love with Sea of Thieves until they got their heart broke when they saw God of War. So when they started seeing all these Sony exclusives popping up, the God of Wars, the Spider-Mans, and all that shit, they finally was like, we want some single player games, we want some exclusives, and then they threatened to walk away if Microsoft don't show them something. So Microsoft had to tell them something like, we bought this, we bought this, we bought this. I mean, if you want me to use a kitchen analogy, Xbox people hadn't ate in years. What they did eat, Phil Spencer was feeding them microwave burritos that don't do shit for you. And they was watching the PlayStation people eat real food, eating feast and eating turkey and, having Thanksgiving dinner with all those exclusives. And they finally went to Phil Spencer was like, if you don't get us some real food, we out of here. So what did Phil Spencer do? Instead of going out and get some real food, he went out and bought new pots and pans and shit like that. I'm like, look, I got a no stick pan for you. You know, so if they went out and bought the utensils to cook the food, you got to give them time to cook it. So that's the way I'm looking at it. So, I mean, if you want me to put it this way, you know, they just bought the pots and pans and shit like that yesterday. So, you know, and they cooks are in the kitchen whipping up everything. You got to give them time to cook it. So when you look at it that way, I wasn't surprised to hear that they won't have any games coming out for a couple of years. I mean, I was surprised that they said it because they had to know that the response was not going to be positive. So I'm surprised that they said it, but I'm not surprised by this situation. I'm not surprised that they ain't going to get anything for a couple of years. But I'm surprised that Microsoft admitted it. You know, because they the kings of lying when it comes to, you know, when it comes to PR. Leave. You said, wait, did you make a video on it? If not, you should. I've got, yeah, Leaf. If you go check my library, I got a bunch of Beat Saber streams. You know, even a couple of them with custom songs. You see, Beat Saber is probably going to be the first game I buy if I get a Rift or a Quest. Yeah. Can't go wrong there. PLO, he says Sony would be insane not to have something. I mean, I think it's a given that they're going to have something, but what I was trying to say about the Sony situation was until you hear it comes out of Sony's mouth that this is what's going to launch with the PS5, don't just assume something's going to be there. So I would use the word tentative. I mean, even though rumors had gone around that GT7 or whatever they're going to call it could be a launch game for the PS5, I'm not taking that for granted because I haven't heard it comes out of Sony's mouth. We know they're working on it, but they never gave us a date. So I'm not going to assume it's going to be a launch game. I hope it's a launch game. So every time you hear me talk about the GT7 or whatever the next GT game is, you always hear me talk about it in the sense that I hope it's going to be a launch game and I hope that it's going to have VR multiplayer. I'm not taking none of that stuff for granted. I mean, I expect it to be there, the VR multiplayer, because they got to know that that's been the big complaint about GT Sport and VR is that there's no VR multiplayer. So if it's not there when the game comes out, I'm assuming that they didn't want to put it there. So but I'm not assuming that that game is going to be there when the PS5 launches, and I'm not assuming that the VR multiplayer is going to be there. I want it to be there. I hope it's going to be there. In PLO, you said they should have had something down the pipeline for a launch title years ago. See, this is the thing though, PLO. I think everything that Microsoft has probably done over the last 5 years, they probably had to change their vision and their long-term plans because, you know, as Craig and a lot of people have pointed out, nobody was buying their games. So they had to make some moves. So, you know, when Microsoft first started this generation, I don't think this current generation that we're in right now, when Microsoft started this generation, I don't think they started this generation with the overall goal of Game Pass, you know, being at the forefront of Microsoft's vision moving forward. I think it was a move that happened because they had to do something because nobody was buying their games, nobody was buying their console. So I think the best way to, since you can't get people to buy the games, you can't get people to buy the console, the next best solution is to find a way to get reoccurring revenue. So I think that was a move that they had to make in response to nobody buying their shit. And now with Microsoft buying the studios that they bought, I don't know if they jumped up and bought all those studios, you know, to because whether or not they took the threat seriously about, you know, the community threatening to leave, or if this was a plan of theirs from the start, to get a hold of these studios so they could fill up Game Pass with a bunch of bullshit games. I don't know. But whatever, I just feel like whatever Microsoft is doing now, they only made those plans a few years ago. I don't think it's something I don't think this is something they had in mind at the beginning of the generation, because I think if Microsoft would have been sitting on 105 million consoles sold just like Sony is, we probably wouldn't. I don't know if we would have a Game Pass. If Microsoft was sitting on 105 million consoles sold right now, I think not only is there a possibility that we would not have Game Pass, I think there's a strong possibility that they would have discontinued support for the Xbox 360 in order to force you to upgrade to the Xbox One, because that's what they did with the 360, and that was their plan. Because Microsoft did make an announcement when the Xbox One first came out. They did make an announcement that they plan to discontinue support of the Xbox 360 in 2015. But by then, the Xbox brand was a dumpster fire from people not buying their shit, and then Microsoft had to go into the stealth mode and not release sales numbers and come up with all these other 8 million bananas 8 and shit like that as a metric of success. So no, they had to keep support going for the 360 because the Xbox One wasn't selling worth a shit. So the majority of their user base was still on 360s. So they had to find a way to get them. Cyber Dragon, what is up? I do believe I said what's up to you. PLO, you said with all the Microsoft resources, Xbox doesn't get a pass. I'm not defending them. And I know you didn't say that I was defending them, and I'm not giving them a pass. But look at it this way. I like I said, I expect the situation as it is right now. You said thank you for giving C Slim the gloves. It was my pleasure. The way things is right now is like I said. If you want to use a kitchen analogy, Microsoft just bought a bunch of pots and pans and shit like that, and just bought a new stove, and they're like, look at all this shiny new stuff we got. Well, okay, those are the developers. Okay, you got the pots, the pans, the stove, and shit like that. Now when we gonna get some food? You got to give them time to cook it. But that I can't fault them for that, because that kind of stuff takes time. What you can fault them for is that it shouldn't have got to this point where they started getting up off their ass and started doing this shit in the last year or so. This is something that should have been happening years ago. So in that aspect, yes, you can point the finger at them. And in that aspect, yes, they don't get a pass, because what they're doing now is something they should have been doing years ago. If I decide to open up a studio tomorrow, you have to expect that it's going to take me a few years to get a game out. So you can't blame me in that aspect. But if it's something you felt I should have done a few years ago, then yeah, you can point the finger at me on that. So that's where Microsoft gets the blame, is that they should have been doing this years ago. But I think when the games weren't selling, from their point of view, it probably didn't make any sense to have other studios besides their normal 3 studios go out and make new franchises that was going to cost anywhere from $50 to $70 million to make these franchises, and then you can't even sell 1 million of them on your console. I mean, you'll be lucky just to break even. So, and Microsoft has clearly demonstrated that Sony strikes me as the type of company that they okay with breaking even if it sells the console. If they put out a game and it only sells like 2 million copies, they might be okay with that if the game helps add to their library and adds to the stigma that Sony is the best place to play. Project X, what's going on? Microsoft, on the other hand, to me, they don't strike me as a company that's satisfied with breaking even. Microsoft strikes me as the type of company that wants to spend $5 and expect to get back 1,000. So with that being said, okay, so people criticize Sony, right? They say that they got 106 million. Okay, just to make my point easier, let's just say that Sony is sitting on 100 million consoles sold, right? And God of War sells 5 million copies. They only sold 5% of the consoles that's in the wild. So now you apply that same formula to the Xbox brand. They got 40 million consoles out there. They come out with a game and it only sells 5% of the consoles that's out there. So that means that that game will only have sold at 40 million. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That game will probably only have sold, if my math is correct, at 5%, that game probably only sold about 800,000 copies. So if the game costs 60 million to make, then they haven't even gotten their money back yet. So in that aspect, it doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense for Microsoft, from their standpoint, it didn't make sense for Microsoft to go out and be spending 50, 60, 70 million dollars to take chances on new franchises that nobody's ever seen before when your user base isn't buying any games. I mean, we at the point right now where even before Game Pass came out, whenever a game came out on the Xbox platform, you didn't even know if the game could sell 1 million copies. Because to me, it's like 1 million copies should be the minimum of what's expected for them to even have a chance to get their money back. You know, and I'm thinking 2 million, you know, to see some profit. So, but what I'm trying to say is people criticizing Sony for a game only selling 5 million copies when there's 100 million consoles out there. So they're criticizing Sony, saying that this particular game only sold 5% of their user base. So what I'm trying to say is that if you apply that same 5% over to the Xbox, it doesn't even sell 1 million. It only sells about 800,000. If you sell 5% of 40 million consoles that's out there, that's about 800,000 copies. And if the game costs $70 million to make, then they actually lost money. So yeah, when you look at it that way, I mean, I feel like this was all business moves on Microsoft's part. Because, you know, from their standpoint, it probably didn't make sense to pump out. It really, from their standpoint, it really didn't make sense to pump out games left and right the way Sony was, because Sony was pumping out high quality games. They weren't pumping out indie bullshit that only took a year to make. They were pumping out high quality games that looked like it cost 40 million at the minimum to make. And they was pumping these games out a mile a minute. Sony was pumping these games out so fast that I was getting a little concerned that they was probably releasing these games too close together and not giving them room to breathe so they can reach their maximum potential as far as sales goes. Now, if Microsoft would have followed that same formula, shit, they would have lost so much money from pumping out so many games that would not have sold. You know, they didn't even buy Gears 5. So if Microsoft would have came out with another AAA $60 million game a month after Gears come out, and then come out with another game 2 months after that, and then come out with another game 2 months after that, none of that shit's gonna sell. Now, you know, if Microsoft busts out maybe, say, 4 AAA exclusives over a 6-month stretch, and your user base is 40 million and nobody buying that shit, you probably done spent almost a $500 million developing games, and you probably ain't even seen 5% of that money back yet because nobody buying the shit. Robert McLeod, what's up? As I always say, old guy in the house. What's going on, man? How you doing? The Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right that the beatdown they gave to Microsoft was relentless, but I think it was a combination of Microsoft not putting out any games and Sony putting out games a mile a minute. And I mean, if you remember correctly, even Sony said they're going to slow down a little bit on the. They said they gonna, they wasn't going to be pumping out games as much as they were this generation. But what they do come out with is going to be of higher quality. And because of that, I think we're going to get more VR games out of Sony, but I don't think we're going to be getting them at a mile a minute the way Sony was pumping them out. I'm getting this feeling like we might only get 2 or 3 VR games a year, but Sony did say that they was going to bring bigger and better experiences to VR, which I take that as more high budget shit, AAA type shit coming to PlayStation VR. And if they do that, I would only expect to see 2, maybe 3 games a year coming out of them. So, I mean, Sony to me was on the verge of oversaturating their platform. A game comes out, and then, a game comes out, you only got a couple of months to play it. You said it, Robert McLeod. Not gaming on PlayStation as always, and according to PlayStation, I had 1,551 hours of gaming last year. I know I don't got anywhere close to those numbers because I was jumping all over the place with VR. PLO, you said we might get a lot of VR ports like Elite Dangerous and a bunch of other titles that the original PS4. Yeah, that's why you just said it right there. That's why I said that, PLO, that once the PS5 hits, I expect the floodgates to open with VR games because you'll have a console that's within the ballpark, in my opinion, of a mid-range PC. So I think the console will have enough power that publishers and developers will be able to release a game on both PC and PlayStation at the same time. It won't be a situation where they release it on PC and then it doesn't come to PlayStation a year later because they got to find a way to water this shit down, or they just can't do it. So yeah, I think when the PS5 hits, a lot of games that people wanted to see in VR this generation might happen next year. So, case in point, like I like Project Cars 2 in VR. It's in VR on PC, but it's not in VR on the PlayStation because I'm led to believe that they just can't do it because it's gonna. Based on what I saw out of GT Sport and Drive Club, if they would have tried to put Project Cars 2 on VR on the PlayStation format, it would have came out one of two ways. If they would have been able to make a multiplayer work, it would have looked like absolute dog shit. It would have been so blurry you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. Or in order to try to account for some of the blurriness, I don't know, they would have had to take some of the shit out of the game. They would have had to take some of the assets out of the game. And thus you would have another game where you're racing on a track by yourself, a time trial, or you're going one-on-one against the AI. But when the PS5 comes out, I wouldn't be surprised if the developers of the Project franchises, they'll either bring Project Cars 2 over to the PlayStation VR, or whatever the next Project 3 is, and if that could be something that could come to PlayStation VR. There are those that think that Half-Life Alyx could possibly come to the PS5, but there's no way this shit could come to the PlayStation VR format now. Gopher, what's up? So, I just gamed. I did not know how many hours I had, but 150, 50, 51 hours. What? LOL. PLO, you said full GT Sport in VR. Absolutely. By the way, what is the AI in GT Sport VR so white? Why is it so weak? I don't know. You would think that in the beginning, I thought maybe that the VR AI was so weak on GT Sport, so it wouldn't discourage people from trying to play the game. Because Sony was trying, in my opinion, even though they gave a minimal effort to market the PlayStation VR, I still think they wanted to, market that. I still think they wanted to try to get the PlayStation VR in the hands of as many people as possible. And I think the last thing they wanted was for somebody to come in and play GT Sport and that AI blow them out of the water, and then I don't want to play this anymore. Because one thing definitely that Sony was trying to stress, because I had heard that like their, their quality assurance or whatever you want to put it, to get a game on the PlayStation VR, the one thing Sony was definitely stressing was no motion sickness. That if you put a game out there, if the game was going to make people motion sick, then Sony probably wouldn't let you put it on there. Because motion sickness, especially in the infancy of the PlayStation VR, was enough to turn a lot of people off. So, but now that I look back at it, I could live with the AI with me only racing against one car. But like on Project Cars 2, they should have given you an option to turn up the difficulty. But they didn't. The AI is just stupid and slow. And so that, is just there. I mean, to me, whenever I race against the AI, I'm just doing it just to show, just to show people something. So I mean, the real challenge is it comes in trying to beat your personal best. Robert McLeod, you said, why is Halo 5's AI stupid? I don't know. Maybe because Microsoft is stupid. PLO, you said if someone was that casual, they wouldn't know how to change the settings. So why not give us the option to increase difficulty? Yeah, that's what I was saying. I mean, if you want to set the AI on stupid by default for people who wouldn't know how to turn the difficulty up, that's fine. But they should have added that. I mean, how much more trouble could that have been to give you an option to turn up the difficulty? The difficulty on Project Cars 2, you can set the AI to be aggressive or you can back them off. The way I have the AI set on default, and I can't beat the AI because the cars aren't reaching their top speed for whatever reason. I grab a car that's supposed to do 215 miles an hour top speed, but I can only get it up to 190. And I'm wondering if that's something where I have to go into the go in there and adjust the car, the suspension, the clutch, the transmission and all that shit. I don't know. Robert McLeod, you said I had no sickness when I used PlayStation VR. I did in the beginning. Riggs, Drive Club VR, Resident Evil. Those are all games that made me sick in the beginning. Rush of Blood made me sick. Bottom line was just even Batman Arkham in VR was making me sick in the beginning because I wasn't used to teleportation as a way to move around. So when PlayStation VR first hit, just about any game that required where you were moving was making me sick. I think one of the games that I was playing that wasn't making me sick when I first got that PlayStation VR was Job Simulator, because that was a game that my son wanted. So, oh, excuse me. And PLO, you said I just played GT Sport VR time trials. I'd just rather race myself than that pathetic AI. Yeah, I mean, like, again, on PC, when you play Project Cars 2 or the Assetto Corsa Competizione, Race Room, but these are all games that you can race against the AI where there's a full grid of racing cars. So whenever I race against a full grid of racing cars on Project Cars 2, I'm racing against 16 cars, in VR. So I absolutely love that, because you got to implement some skill. So if you have PC VR, then Project Cars is definitely one of the games I would recommend if you want to do a racing sim in VR. Robert McLeod, Halo 5's AI walked right past me several times and never healed me. Oh my God. You also say, I can't wait to play LA Noire in VR. Yeah. Whenever I get around to getting that game, I'm going to get it on PC because, for one, it's easier, like using the G2A app. It's easier to get PC games a little bit cheaper through that app versus, buying it on the PlayStation Store. Not only that, on PC, the game will be clearer. There'll be less blur. Because with the Rift S, it's pretty much no blur. It's all to it. Excuse me, folks. PLO, you said the only game that gave me motion sickness was Valkyrie. That was another game that made me sick. Now, when you're in that ship and it launches you out of that chute, that part didn't make me sick. I thought that part was like a rush. I was like, that was because it was the first time I felt like Battlestar Galactica. That part. But then once you get out into actual space and those controls are inverted where you push up on the thumbstick and you go down, that shit was messing me up, and all that shit was causing me to get sick too. So yeah, I forgot the Valkyrie was another game that was making me sick. Robert McLeod, my game I cannot wait to play on PSVR is Resident Evil 7. You haven't played that yet? What's going on, man? Okay. Just a minute here. Checking a couple of things. Okay. So, you still haven't finished Resident Evil 7? No, I haven't either. Oh, you said I know, I got bills. But you know what, Robert McLeod? The PlayStation VR has a demo disc. Now, what I can't remember was whether that demo disc was a physical disc or if it was something that was already preloaded into the headset. But there is a little bit of a Resident Evil clip in there. So if you go to, I think the demo disc, in fact, I think there's 2 or 3 demo discs. If you go to the PlayStation Store, I think there's 2 or 3 volumes of the PlayStation VR demo disc, and there's a little snippet of Resident Evil in one of those demo discs. So try looking for that. You want Alien Isolation VR for PS5? Now, Alien Isolation, somebody on PC did a VR mod for that game. I guess he goes by the name of Nibre, and the person who did that mod is working on doing a VR mod for Halo Reach. So that's another reason to consider getting a PC to play VR on a PC, because more, slowly but surely, people are starting to take some of our, past favorite games and adding a VR mod to it, because like Grand Theft Auto 5 has a VR mod. You could play that game in VR. So that's starting to happen more and more too. So I mean, like when you play VR on the PC, the options you have out there are astronomical. You said not really in the demos. I want the full game. Okay, I can understand that. At one point, though, I do believe the game was on sale at the PlayStation Store for about $15 at one point. You said Alien Isolation scared me though. Scared me enough. Not sure about it on PSVR. Yeah, I feel you. PLO. Yeah, I know about the mod. I'm so jealous. I'm definitely getting PCVR next year. Oh yeah. I mean, it's like I said, PlayStation VR. There's a lot of games on there, but to talk about it in scale, PlayStation VR is about this big. When you throw PC VR into the mix, the world becomes that big, because there's just so much more shit out there. And then you'll find on PC VR, you will find what the PlayStation VR is lacking. PlayStation VR is lacking multiplayer games. There's not a terrible amount of multiplayer games out there. There's not a terrible amount of first-person shooter games out there, and there's not a terrible amount of sim racers out there on PlayStation VR. On PC VR, there's more of that shit out there than you know what to do with. There's so many first-person shooter games in VR. I think there's about 5 or 6 different battle royale games out there in VR. There's a ton of sim racing games in VR. More shit than you know what to do with. It's like being at a Steam. The VR section on Steam is like being at a VR buffet. And there's a ton of games out there that's either dirt cheap or free. He said the demo content is not the full game. Check it out. Yeah, that's what I was saying about that, PLO. I was just saying, if you wanted a little tidbit of the Resident Evil, you could go try out the demo if you just wanted to get a little taste. And Robert McLeod, you said what sucked about Alien Nation is I could not kill the aliens, just scare them away. I don't do very good with horror games. Damn, I've been on over an hour. I'm trying to debate if I want to try to play Creed one more time. I mean, there needs to be more flight sims in VR. There's a few of them. Again, there's a few of them on Steam. I think you got a game called Wings on PlayStation VR, but you got those Lego-looking graphics. You have the Ace Combat, but I paid $60 for that game for the full game, but it only had 3 VR missions on there. But I wanted to play those VR missions bad enough that I was willing to pay the $60 just to play those 3 VR missions. And I only finished one of the missions. But wow, I mean, that was a rush though, taking off in that fighter jet from an aircraft carrier. Something that I'll never get a chance to do in my lifetime. So to experience that in VR, that was something else. So, then the Microsoft Flight Simulator, The developers of that game said that getting VR support for that game is high on their priority list. And they said this right after Phil Spencer said that VR wasn't coming to Xbox. So I would be interested, even though Microsoft doesn't have any games that interest me. I would be interested in Flight Simulator if they did give it VR support. I think a couple of people from IGN played the game, and they said the game was so accurate with the map and shit that they said they flew over their own apartments. You said those 3 VR missions were amazing. I must put 50 hours in the VR missions. I'm going to come back around to those PLO because I went and bought. This is how much I was looking forward to those 3 missions in Ace Combat. I bought the game for $60 and I went out and bought a flight stick for $80 just for that. So Robert McLeod, Until Dawn on PSVR would be trippy. Yeah, I played that too. That was another game. It made me a little bit motion sick the very first time I played it, but I was so worried about trying to kill anything that came at me because I don't do well with horror games but Rush of Blood, the big reason that game, it was a little bit scary the first time I played it, but the biggest reason why I wasn't terribly scared is because I had weapons. So it was simple. If you don't want them to get you, shoot them. Whereas in Resident Evil, there was a couple of moments where that crazy ass chick, where she attacked you, but you don't got any weapons to defend yourself. So, you said you wish you would have gotten a flight stick? Yeah. That adds to the immersion on those VR missions on Ace Combat. Oh boy, sorry about that, folks. I guess I might have to get ready to shut it down in a minute. My voice is getting a little bit scratchy, and you guys see me here yawning. That's not exactly professional, if I want to put it that way. And plus, I want to try to play something before I go to bed. Said Until Dawn made me jump a lot. Yeah, it made me jump a little bit too. I'm trying to decide, what do I want to play? Now, I do want to race a little bit. I do want to play Project Cars, but that would require me to go into the corner and get the racing wheel out and set all that shit up. Or I could just simply grab that Quest, put it on, and just play something. Just that quick. So, I think that's about all I got. Yeah, it is, Tatsy. I'm really sorry. So yeah, that's the cue. I need to go ahead and shut it down before I put all you guys to sleep with that shit. That's the cue. This week, other than Sony not going to E3, I mean, well, I guess there's been a little bit of news, but it's only Tuesday. So, does Oculus Quest have any racing game? They have a game called Deathlap. And when everybody first saw the trailer for Deathlap, they were like, hey, this is the VR version of Twisted Metal. And, but when the game actually got out, I guess, I guess it got some kind of like mixed reviews. So there's also, I think there's like Dash Race, one of them like Mario Kart type of games. I also know the touring karts, the developer. I did talk to the developer of touring karts, and he's working on trying to get that on the Oculus Quest. But yeah, there's no sim racers on the Quest. Not yet. Oh my goodness, yeah. Let me shut this down because I'm trying to fight this shit and I'm only going to fall. Just I can't fight it. So let me go ahead and get on out of here. Put that Quest headset on. Get a little bit of gaming. Get a little bit of therapy, VR therapy in before I go to bed and call it a night. As far as this Saturday goes, live from Wakanda. Whether I do that show or not this week all depends on how much news we get the rest of the week because I don't want to get up there and just try to make up shit to talk about just to do it. So that's gonna do it for me, everybody. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, share, all that good stuff. And as far as gaming goes, I can say that I will stream something again later this week. Whether I stream another game of Spark or whether I fight somebody on Creed again. Thanks, golfer. We'll see you on the next one. So I will stream something as far as a game goes. I will stream something. I don't know what, but you can definitely look out for something on that. And now I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. Try to be 15. Hell no, Robert. 51 hours of gaming. Shit. You barely get 15 minutes out of me. But thanks for watching, folks. I'm out of here, y'all. Deuces.